Welcome back to Astrology in the Wild. I am your astrologer, Kei Tyler, and today this video is going to be about Jupiter in Taurus. It's kind of a mini class, so it might be a little bit long, but what we're discussing is what Jupiter means in astrology in a nutshell. Then we're going to go over what Jupiter in Taurus means, because when it's in a different sign, it kind of engages us to be a little different. And then on top of that, we're giving 5 focus points that would make this whole year really fabulous, how to really tap into the right things to do so that you're using the most you can out of this advantageous time. So if that seems like it's something you can jive with, then stay tuned. All right. So we're starting here with Jupiter in Taurus. I'm thinking of it as a year of spiritual revolution. My teacher, Maurice Fernandez, says that when there's kind of a Uranus aspect to this, we are really kind of leveling ourselves up spiritually in a way. And Uranus is currently in Taurus. So they're not conjunct, meaning they're right next to each other, but they are giving some flavors and influence that are very impactful. So this event occurs May 16th and goes through May 26th of 2024. So we're already in that energy today as this video is being released. And this perspective is an evolutionary astrology perspective. So it may be a little different than what you're normally hearing about the general aspects of how Jupiter is, because there's some other things happening as well. And we tend to look at astrology as a way of opportunity and what we're really trying to evolve into by considering where we were. And so we'll talk about that in a minute. I've got some really cool observations about what's happened the last time Jupiter was in Taurus, so stay tuned for that. But for now, we're going to talk about Jupiter's main meanings. When we talk about Jupiter as a planet standalone, we can think about like the big picture perspective, which is it's the biggest planet in the solar system. And it's completely made up of gas. And so there's no surface to stand on. It's actually just moving. You couldn't land on it if you wanted to. Now, if moving on to the astrological meanings that are kind of general, it represents joy, abundance, inspiration, and luck. If you've ever heard it from other astrologers, they will tend to say that it's the great benefic, and the meaning it's bringing you great opportunities and great abundance. And so that's essentially what it's touching on when someone says the great benefic planet. It also represents getting what you want out of life. So Jupiter has the tendency to bestow some blessings, which is why we also like to consider it as a very spiritual type of planet. So this planet also represents higher education. So that's going to college, going to trade school. It's investing in your education far beyond, let's say, high school if you're in the United States, or before you go to. It represents like a secondary training. So again, we've already said that it's considered a very spiritual planet. And belongs to the sign of Sagittarius. So it has you always considering different philosophies, discovering new belief patterns around those philosophies, theories. If you think about going to college and getting a degree like a master's or a doctorate, you've got to write a dissertation. And so a dissertation is generally a conglomerate of thoughts and philosophies and theories about proving what it is you're wanting to solve in that framework. So that's essentially what Jupiter is trying to do. It's really trying to bring more of that to your life by adding more knowledge, by adding more And it's, you can think of Jupiter as a planet of more. And even in the sign of Taurus, we're going to really be experiencing that more aspect. Like there's some simplicity in there. It's not like you're going to go completely overboard on everything, but there are some aspects that you're going to experience where you just feel that you can't get enough. So this also represents a time of when Jupiter is in your chart or is having a big aspect or change. You start to think about things that are larger than yourself. It's where you start to think about the world as a whole and how you're going to serve that world, in what ways that you can disseminate information. So it's like learning all of this information in school, going to vocational school, going to training that's, out of the K through 12. And after that, what do you do with that information you were given? Do you keep it to yourself? What do you do? And generally you're going to start working with the public. You're going to start writing books. You're going to start educating people. So that's usually what Jupiter is all about. It can also represent taking big risks and spiritual journeys, both physically and mentally. And you might see those themes throughout the course of the year from now until next May. It also represents grandparents. So it's the last fire sign. And Jupiter is like basically, if Leo is your children, then Jupiter, the last fire sign, would be your grandchildren or you being a grandparent. So I'll say this as creatively speaking. Say that last year you had a whole lot of changes happen, and this year you're wanting to open your own business. So basically, this business would be the grand love child of all of your experiences last year. And so that's why this Jupiter transit is really activating, because there were some things that we were dropping into last year that were very adventurous and had us kind of like pushed out on a ledge in a constant way. It was very emergent. But this time around, you're being asked to slow down just a tad because there are some different things to consider. And we'll get into that a little bit. Lastly, I want to mention that in the body, it represents the hips and lower back. So it's going to be very important to focus on creating more movement in your life, to not feel these moments of huge stagnation. Maybe you have felt that way. Maybe you haven't been moving your body in ways that you wish. Maybe there's been a lot of sitting. But a lot of hip openers are important. Stretching the legs quite well, making sure that your quads and your calves are warmed up and stretched is really going to help help your lower back function in a better way. This is a naturally fire-ruled planet. So again, there's this essence of things moving quickly and new ideas to share and to take in, and really taking all of those in to push your internal boundaries, because with Jupiter, you're always going to extend yourself in ways, and because we all have Jupiter in a different sign, we're going to do that all in different ways. So we'll go into what Jupiter in Taurus actually means. So we have this photo in front of us of this person that's standing on a rock, and the rock, the soil, the plant material, that's all a very Taurus thing. And you see this young lady, she's standing up on that rock, and she's overlooking a large body of water, which is, and so one recommendation I have is to invest in art, and yourself. And so, there might be a tendency this period to have the want to get everything it is that you want, things that are beautiful, things that have been on your wish list for a long time. And I'm just saying, instead of investing in something that can be replaced over and over again, or buying another thing that you already have, really make your purchases grounded, make them meaningful. And so investing in yourself. So you're going to maybe be willing to spend a little extra to make sure that you are stable and grounded in the practice of life. And so I do see that there will be a propensity for needing to make sure that your money is on point. So starting a savings account might be really important. Really get on top of your finances. Maybe starting an LLC, maybe paying your taxes might be, one way of kind of growing up and graduating yourself as a business owner, or any other venture that you're kind of treading water with. Now is the time to really establish yourself and making the proper steps towards that. Small, simple, but long game type of changes in your life. You know what I mean? And so another way that Taurus is bringing some inspiration to Jupiter is by the way we are using our words. I always think of Taurus as this, as the manifester. Whatever you say, whatever comes from your throat and out of your mouth is exactly what you're wanting. So that's the way that you should speak your words. And Jupiter and the sign of Sagittarius, who rules Jupiter, it's a very positive and optimistic kind of energy. So really considering the way that the words are landing and seeing if your life is actually being manifested in the way that you're wanting it to. You know what I mean? So that goes straight into, having real intrinsic value on specific beliefs. And these beliefs will essentially revolve around having a minimal lifestyle. Even though you might want to expand particular things and grow it and whatnot, make it as minimal as possible, reduce the tasks. You might need to invest in your health in a different way. And I'll say that just because Taurus has the tendency to just keep stacking on top of each other. So you might see yourself really just dipping into a comfort zone and going back to what's tried and true in terms of like calories. And you're probably going to have to be more conscientious if you want to keep your health the way that it has been. And or now is a good time to change that. So that's a consideration. And any education commitments that you have, if there's a class or a workshop or a YouTube series that you want to dedicate yourself to learn a particular craft, now is the time. If you have a friend that can show you a particular thing that you want to be better at, elicit their services, because what you want is a sustainable life, and you really want to start being smarter with your money, because Taurus represents money. It represents the financial system. It represents stability and having a savings account, having something to go back to. So long-awaited ideas may manifest, so don't think it's not possible. If you've been really praying for, hoping for, speaking into existence, ideas that you've really been sitting on for a while, or that have just come and you feel very confident about it, now is the time that those things might grow legs and start walking. And so don't think that it's impossible, because with Uranus nearby, it's really going to give these unexpected blessings. And so keep your mind and your mouth in the most positive frame that you can. And on this channel, we do have and will have ways to make that easily possible by using the practice of Kundalini yoga, really dedicating yourself to your life in a spiritual way. And lastly, Taurus is adding to Jupiter's grandness is the ability to build something that is able to last and gives you something so that you're able to plan for the future. So if there are things that are looming or things that come up this year that add to the building of your beliefs, that solidify your sovereignty, your way of life, now is a good time to invest in that. Okay. So this is the chart. We're going back a little bit in time. You can generally get an idea of what's to come by looking in the past, which is why this is evolutionary astrology. And the year 2000 kind of has some really interesting points that this current Jupiter and Taurus transit is having. So there is quite an abundance of Aquarian energy, which kind of mirrors what we're having now. The nodes are exactly at 3 degrees. So while they're different degrees here in the year 2000, they're in fixed signs in this year at 3 degrees. And Jupiter is at the top of the chart. And also we're coming up on a fire Mars as well. So a lot of similar energies. And if we think of Jupiter as grandparents, we think about the birth of our children, which would be grandchildren. We want to skip a generation. We want to skip a generation going back, because what you're tapping into now is probably a more evolved and revolutionized version of yourself from the year 2000, possibly. So Jupiter was in Taurus in 2000 for about 6 months, and some cool little events that happened, and not so little. Marshall Mathers, the 3rd studio album by Eminem, is released and becomes the fastest ever selling studio album. So Jupiter doesn't represent music, but well, it probably can, depending on what it's near. But the sign of Taurus is beauty, and that's beauty through art. That's beauty through music, through nature, which is also a Jupiterian thing, Sagittarian thing. So you might see a lot of people this year coming out with some really great music, and they might do really well in it. Another kind of spiritual but musical thing that happened was Italian singer Andrea Bocelli sang for Pope John Paul II. And that's kind of cool, actually. They mixed this music aspect with spirituality. That's very Jupiter and Taurus. So this was really cool. I found a combination of physical properties that's never been seen before in a man-made or natural material. A new class of composite material is fabricated. And so, like, if you think about building a house, all of the materials that go into building the house is a very Taurus thing, especially any of the natural made materials like wood, stone, maybe even simple forms of concrete. So you might see a lot of those types of projects being initiated. Maybe more people will start building with natural materials, which would be amazing. Or different types of textures might come into the scene when it comes to materials, because Taurus represents materials. I found this to be interesting. The population of India reaches 1 billion in year 2000, which I read a report just last week that China used to have the most people. And so India is actually going to outpace them in population this next coming year. So with this very Venusian, Taurus rules Venus. And so there's a lot of lovely feelings going on. And so we might see a rise in childbirth or people getting pregnant. It's a very nurturing and, Mother Earth is the vibe that we're having, birthing some new ideas, making their beautiful, making what's internally beautiful to them come out into a physical manifestation. Queen Elizabeth celebrates her 100th birthday, the Queen Mother. So not Queen Elizabeth, but her mother. She turned 100 this year in 2000, and really speaks to Taurus and its longevity, because a bull would need to graze almost all day long to keep enough nutrient in the body. It leads them to live, a pretty long life. My teacher always mentions that people who have heavy Taurus in their chart, they're not going anywhere. They're going to be there for a long time. They're stubborn. And so they're going to do what it takes to live. And so, we might be seeing a lot of people reach higher levels in age, or we might see a couple people that are really that are of older age start to kind of pass to the higher realm, which happened in the year 2000 as well. A lot of prominent figures passed away. And another really cool thing that happened is in the Netherlands, a law was passed which allowed same-sex marriage. And so here go the beliefs again with Jupiter. And this was a year of, I would say, like social activation, where people in society really considered what their beliefs were as a whole. Do they believe that everybody is this, or, are we going to start separating people into groups and allowing them to have their autonomy? And this kind of speaks to that. So real quick, in year 2011, Jupiter was in Taurus for 13 months, longer than it was the first time around. So generally it will run from 7.5 to 13 months, and kind of anywhere in between there, give or take a couple months. So in this case, it was on the longer cycle. And some prominent events that happened was in February, Trayvon Martin was shot. And that was a huge case, where a young man was shot by an older adult in Florida. And so it really started to question gun laws, and what someone would consider being protecting themselves. And so there goes that belief system again. Yeah, there were a lot of protests in 2011 by Tunisia, Egypt, Yemen, Syria, Libya, and more. There were more than this. This was also the year that the US did Occupy Wall Street. So just in a nutshell, there was a lot of social justice that happened in this year, which could potentially also be a theme this year as well. With Jupiter being high in the chart like that, I think, people's awareness around belief systems and how it's holding us back or not progressing us forward is a big deal, right? And so that's why we see these long-standing beliefs like crumble, like, the building is crumbling and we've got to build it back up on better ground. And so the US military this year, they banned the policy that banned homosexuality in the armed forces was officially repealed. So the don't ask, don't tell policy was completely stripped away, and couples were able to have same-sex relationships and no longer needed to hide or had threat of being kicked out of the services for their sexual orientation. Lady Gaga released Born This Way, and again, a large prominent figure who has really helped us upgrade and revolutionize the way that we do technology, also passes away from cancer. So Jupiter in Taurus has the ability to create really great forms of structure because people are very aware of what needs to be simplified. And it also can start to crumble or make things in disrepair so that something else needs to be taken, something else takes its place. So exciting in terms of kind of how the past has affected us. So, start to think about, kind of socially what we might be going through, but also, take out your notebooks and start thinking about, take out your notebook now. And and then when you take out your notebook, hit like and subscribe, because it does help this channel. It helps my business. It helps spread the word. And it also will help me be able to continue providing free content that is supposed to be in the mainframe for you to know. So with that notebook, I implore you to think back, if you possibly can, even through your emails, ask your parents, ask your friends, to help bring back the memories. But in the year 2000 and in the year 2011, what was happening in your life at that time, so that you can kind of get an idea on how to prepare. For each of you, it's going to be different because you all have Taurus somewhere different in the chart. So we're all kind of working on things collectively in a way, but the way that you do it is going to be quite different than your neighbor. And so if you want to know what those differences are, you can always schedule a reading on my website. That's astrologyinthewild.com. Or for now, you can just ask your people what's been happening. So Jupiter in Taurus, 2023. This is the chart. It's a beautiful chart. There's a lot of fixed energy. We've got Pluto in retrograde. And we have this really nice stellium in the 10th house. We have a lot of energy in that 10th house. It's really asserting itself. So I'll say, just as a personal aside for myself, in 2011 was the year I decided to completely change what I was doing for a career. And I started working for a college. I was working for Mojave Community College. And I had dropped my whole life in Las Vegas. I moved to Arizona and I started working at a call center. And I really had a lot of faith at this time. I remember thinking that I was just going to make things work, that I wanted a new expression of life. I wanted a slower pace. I wanted to feel grounded where I was. And I wanted to not feel so dysregulated by my environment. And so I found this really cute town, this really cute place, spent my last coins in order to pay for the rent before I had the job. And then I went in and I got the job. And it ended up being a fabulous way of offering service. It was a lot of fun working for the education system. And it was a college, of course. So that kind of speaks to this Jupiter energy of college, of higher education, of serving a larger, greater cause, serving more people, and maybe possibly being more social with it. You know what I mean? So I find myself in the same predicament. I am in an astrology program with my teacher, Maurice Fernandez, and I've been studying with him for almost 3 years. And I project that within this year, I will graduate, Lord willing. So it's interesting, the cycles that we go through. And so that's why I'm like, hey, go back and start to think about where you were at those times. So what we're thinking about around this period of time is what's made now needs to last the test of time, or just beyond your own time. So that's why it's kind of a serious placement. It's making you consider changing your life in a way that creates solidity. And so you might feel very dense in this period of time and almost immovable about your beliefs and where you want to be. And for some of you, that may be great. And for some of you, you may be like, I'm tired of feeling this way. So there's a whole gamut of ways that we can feel. And it's really going to ignite our spiritual awareness. What kind of spiritual practices support us? What brings us back to our body? What keeps us out of the head? What are we able to do in order to bring ourselves back to earth? So, you might have a lot of ideas that you actually need to ground and put on paper. So, writing in paper is a very Sagittarian type of thing. They love paper and books. And so if you are able to journal the things that are in your mind, put that on paper, it's one way of manifesting, but it doesn't mean that it's actually going to happen. You're going to actually need to put in a couple actionable steps. But you'll feel when that time is ready. So you've made it this year and you've survived all of the bumps in the road this past year has given us. So now you're going to teach others what you've learned from it. You're going to be having a lot of conversations about the shit that you got into last year and how it's completely changed your life and created a really cool foundation, and how you're just trying to narrow in the focus for that. A lot of me and my friends are talking about that right now. It's a really serendipitous time to get together and talk about what we think is spiritually going to happen for ourselves, and being really optimistic about it. It's a great opportunity for financial change and abundance, but also a big year for wasting money and buying things you don't need because they're pretty, or will make your social status be desirable, or you think it's a piece of art and you think you should have it. I'm letting you know now that from this May till next May, you are probably going to go overboard on a couple of things, which might be food, which might be buying things, material possessions. And so, while we all are collectively experiencing this, we need to be aware that this is a thing that we're going through and not be blind to it. So reassessing and asking yourself if that's really something that you need, and also giving yourself plenty of time before you actually do it, because this is a time of resourcefulness. This is a time of being sustainable. How do you know that someone else doesn't have that thing that you want and they're willing to give it to you? And that's kind of where you need to start thinking. When Mercury was in retrograde, I don't know how many of you actually rushed to do a thing to fix a problem and realized if you had just waited a couple days, it would have solved itself. And maybe realizing that a little too late. And so this energy is here too. Taurus wants us to slow down a little tiny bit and maybe add an extra day before you say, yes, I'm going to commit to this idea, or adding a couple more days before you click buy on the website. Those might be really good ways of kind of calling that down a little bit and keeping yourself at a stable balance with it. But you're going to go overboard, and don't feel bad. It's just always remember that, like, this is a tendency we all have. And and to not feel guilty about it. But one thing you can do is to be giving, because this time has the tendency to make us greedy. You might want to consider giving more away in terms of clothes, shoes, material possessions you no longer wear, trying to keep them for the future. If you can part with any of those things, it's a great way to kind of keep yourself in balance. So if you are purchasing things but are giving things away that you're not really using, then you're kind of balancing out the karma of that. And so there could be a lot of karma creating if you're not thinking about the balance. You can't keep taking things in if you're not expending. If you're eating too much and not exercising, you're going to put on a lot of weight. And so everything has its cost, and that is the meaning behind all of that. Don't take anything for free if you're not going to be able to give back to someone or that same person in return. That way you can kind of keep yourself clear. You might meet quite a few people that have and are of social resource and value. So keep that in mind when you are having conversations with others. Start to listen about what they're offloading, start to listen about things that they need, and see if you are that type of person to oblige and give that to them. And lastly, again, increased hunger physically and mentally. So I mentioned there might be a lot of babies born. This is going to be a very sexual time. A time where people are going to want to be in their bodies and experience bliss. And that can sometimes result in pregnancies and or falling in love and or creating long-lasting relationship. So while Jupiter's not really a relationship type planet, maybe you have Taurus in the 7th house of relationships, and so maybe that might be a blessing for you. We don't know. You do your research, or you call on me, astrologyinthewild.com, and I will help you figure that out. So lastly, there are 5 focused considerations now that I've unloaded all of these propensities, these opportunities, these theories, this history. This is all Jupiter. This is all what I have to give you with my Jupiter. And so I want you to be as polished and as refined as you possibly can, because I have Jupiter in Aquarius, and that is the sign of astrology and the researcher. And so I'm here to give you as much information as I can so that you can make really good choices and decisions moving forward for the next year in terms of your belief systems. And so we are tapping on number 5, resource management. Again, sustainability with your money, natural resources, and food. Making things stretch longer. Sharing instead of being greedy. Boy, can I be greedy. I'll be just eating and eating. Because the extreme is the natural inclination. So if you feel more that you're doing something more than you don't normally do, that's what this is tapping on. It's important to be frugal because the propensity is to spend and enjoy our creature comforts. Number 4, ideas around, are my beliefs working? This is a spiritual revolution. So do your beliefs about money, spirituality, and resources support you in being a positive person and having a positive outlook on life? It might be a good journal prompt. Are there things that you're bringing into physical manifestation that are not solid, or are they financially sound? So are you making choices with other people's money? Are you really conflating what you're wanting and then really not having the thing to support it financially? The idea is it could come, but make it financially sound first. Make it attainable for yourself, and then maybe that money might come out of nowhere still. This is a time to bring your spiritual ideas into practice, and to practice daily, and looking the part. And so you might actually invest in a more, you might start to look like the professional. You might start to personify and embody the knowledge that you're imparting, that you're giving to other people, which could really be a lovely thing. It could really make you feel like you finally made it, you know? Number 3, I say standing on your own, and not in a form of complete independence away from other people, and you don't need other people to do a thing, because you absolutely do. It's way more fun, and you can't possibly do everything by yourself. But standing on your own is really taking the initiative to disseminate the information that you've learned over the past year, over the past 18 years, and giving credit to those that you've drawn upon or that you've learned from. So it's good to pay homage to your teachers. It's okay to teach a thing, and for you to not fully be an expert, but to then say, this is who I study under, this is who I studied from, this is who I got this from. It's completely okay to say that. Focus on your authenticity and experience as a way to stand on your own 2 feet. And so, again, you don't need to be the main primary force and creator when it comes to theology or a philosophy or a belief system or a teaching. What you need to be is authentic, and you need to be truthful about where you got this. You know, people say they get a master's degree, they're expected to say from which college. So if you value the education that you've come from, you should definitely mention it. Tenacity with your beliefs, even if it takes a little while to become real. So it might be slowly inching towards what you're really wanting to see. You might start to get inklings that it's coming around. Just don't give up that faith, because the faith will keep you positive. The faith will keep the words that are coming out of your mouth of higher degree, higher standard, representing your higher self. And therefore, you're able to be in joy, and you're able to receive until the full manifestation of what you're wanting to see for yourself becomes real. Finishing things. So again, Jupiter was previously in Aries. There was a lot of real willpower towards new adventures, lots of experimentation. And maybe you feel like you did it all. I mean, it was a really fast time. I remember everybody saying, gosh, it's already 3:00. Gosh, it's already April. Like it went by really fast. And it gave the spirit of trying things that you've never done before. I know a lot of my friends, a lot of you have done things in this past year that were you were really pushed towards your edge, and you did things that you didn't think you actually could do. But you were very Aries about it, and just you were able to stand alone, and you were able to fight through it and survive. And so you survived it all. Like, yay, congratulations. And now that it's in Taurus, it means that it's time to ground into those ventures that you took. Not trying a bunch of things, but taking from what it is that you studied, what it is that you gathered, the things that you've learned, and like sit on those and invest in those and make more value and meaning out of those experiences, because those are what are going to keep you going this year. That is what's going to give you this financial abundance that you're looking for. That's what's going to make you more resourceful as a person in whatever field that you're working in, whatever you're doing. So rest on what feels good, on what feels nurturing and fulfilling, as long as it's not extreme, as long as you're not overstuffing yourself, as long as you're not overextending. It's always going to be a game of balance. You know, you can't give away things for free. And so value yourself, raise your prices if you need to, assess a value to a service, do a thing you didn't think you were going to do, get a second job. These are all things you might have to consider. Make a list of everything you did last May. That's a good journal prompt there. What did you believe at that time? And now, how do you feel it's changing? Because I know that you are already feeling this energy while it's going to be a whole year of going through different iterations of validating these things that we're talking about. What's changed from now till then? Because you can already see that there's a huge difference in you. And lastly, embodiment. And I picked this photo because it has all kinds of really beautiful things, which is food, and food is beautiful. Food is Taurus. Flowers is Taurus. Color and vibrancy, you know, is a very Sagittarian thing. If you ever see Sagittarius people dress, they usually have some pretty unique style. Even a Mercury in Sagittarius, they know how to have fun with their style of dress. So maybe Mercury in Sag, ninth house, planets around Jupiter, you're going to see vibrance of color and things that are very different. And so you're going to have to become that. You're going to have to embody that weirdo that you love, that has this internal palace of wonderment and lessons. And so the definition of embodiment is a tangible or visible form of an idea, a quality or feeling. And taking pride in yourself, your appearance, and adding beauty to the world around you are just a few things that you can do. If you can't do 5 through 2, all the things I talked about this, you know, a few minutes ago, just focus on embodiment. Just focus on a tangible, visible form of your ideas, the qualities of life that you've really experienced this past year that made you feel really good. Take note of the ones that didn't make you feel good, and making meaning out of those feelings. Okay. I think in a nutshell, you've got it. You have got 5 complete steps. You have got a slew of knowledge of the past of when Jupiter was in Taurus, what Jupiter means alone. And you are awakening to the astrology that's already in your DNA, which is why you listen, which is why you learn. I am Kei Tyler again. This is Astrology in the Wild. I look forward to giving you a new moon video tomorrow that will give a nice practice on what to do with this Jupiter, because we'll be talking about it just a smidgen and kind of maybe adding a little bit of wonderful mantra, a little meditation that maybe you can work on for the next 2 weeks until the full moon occurs. And I wish you all of the luck, the joy, the abundance that Jupiter has to offer. I believe that as a whole, we are coming up to a time where spirituality is going to win, where love is going to win. And regardless of what we see in the world and how we all talk about the hell, that the world is going to hell in a handbasket, I believe there's great opportunity. And while bad things happen, a lot of good things happen too. and you can't have one without the other. And so just keep that in your mind. Try not to let it overtake you, and I will see you soon. If you are in the Davis area, we are giving a workshop, me and my great friends from Heartscapes, Reiki, and Soundscapes. We are doing an open house. If you follow me on Facebook, you will see that notification. I'll be giving a little bit of a personal way that I bring astrology and the body together in this workshop. And I look forward to giving that to you in a regular way. Love, love, love. Thank you for listening, and I'll talk to you soon.